Ashley Park never imagined that answering her apartment door at 10 in the morning would completely reshape her understanding of success, failure, and what it truly means to prove your worth. She had been nursing her third cup of coffee, still in her pajamas, when the sharp knock interrupted her job search routine. Standing in her hallway was a man in an expensive suit, briefcase in hand, asking if she was Ashley Park, sister of Marcus Park. The conversation that followed would shatter everything she thought she knew about her professional reputation and set in motion a series of events that would transform her from the family disappointment into the most powerful person in a room full of executives who had once dismissed her completely. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Ashley Park had always been the underachiever in the Park family dynamic, at least according to her older brother Marcus. At 28, she possessed a sharp analytical mind and an intuitive understanding of business operations that most MBA graduates would envy. But her unconventional career path had never impressed her family. While Marcus climbed the corporate ladder at prestigious consulting firms, Ashley had bounced between startups, freelance projects, and brief stints at companies that seemed promising until they inevitably folded. Growing up in the affluent suburb of Westfield, New Jersey, Ashley and Marcus had shared the typical sibling rivalry, but theirs carried an extra weight of parental expectations and social pressure. Their father, Dr. Henry Park, was a renowned cardiologist who had built a successful practice from nothing after immigrating from South Korea. Their mother, Elena Park, had transitioned from being a concert pianist to managing the family's considerable real estate investments. Success wasn't just encouraged in the Park household, it was assumed. Marcus, 3 years older, had always been the golden child. Valedictorian at Westfield High School, summa cum laude from Princeton University, MBA from Wharton. His trajectory seemed predetermined from birth, each achievement building naturally on the last. Ashley, meanwhile, had graduated from Rutgers with a degree in business administration that she'd chosen more out of uncertainty than passion. Her grades were solid, but not spectacular. Her internships practical, but not prestigious. The divergence began in their early 20s. Marcus landed a position at McKinsey & Company straight out of business school, while Ashley took a job at a small marketing firm in Brooklyn that specialized in helping local businesses develop their digital presence. She loved the work, the creativity, the direct impact she could see in helping small business owners reach new customers and grow their revenue. But at family gatherings, when relatives asked about their careers, Marcus would discuss his consulting work with Fortune 500 companies, while Ashley would explain why she chose to help a family-owned restaurant improve their online ordering system. The contrast became more pronounced as years passed. Marcus moved from McKinsey to a senior role at a hedge fund, then to a private equity firm where he specialized in corporate restructuring. His salary reached 6 figures, then 7. He purchased a penthouse apartment in Manhattan's Upper East Side, wore custom-tailored suits, and dated women whose LinkedIn profiles read like achievement catalogs. Ashley, meanwhile, continued working with smaller companies, often taking equity stakes instead of higher salaries in businesses she believed had potential. Some of those bets paid off modestly, others failed spectacularly. Their parents never explicitly stated their disappointment in Ashley's choices, but their pride in Marcus was unmistakable. Holiday conversations centered around his latest deals, his appearances in financial publications, his invitations to exclusive industry events. When Ashley tried to share news about a client who had tripled their revenue thanks to her marketing strategy, the response was polite but brief before conversation naturally drifted back to Marcus's accomplishments. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving dinner 3 years prior. Ashley had just helped launch a sustainable fashion startup that was gaining significant traction among environmentally conscious consumers. She was excited about the company's mission and her role in developing their go-to-market strategy. As she explained the business model to the family, Marcus interrupted with a laugh that still echoed in her memory. "Ashley, when are you going to stop playing with these hobby businesses and get a real job? You're 25 years old and you're still acting like you're in college, trying to save the world one failed startup at a time. Meanwhile, I just closed a deal that saved 3,000 jobs at a manufacturing company. Which one of us is actually making a difference here? The sting of his words was amplified by the uncomfortable silence that followed. Their parents exchanged glances, their aunts and uncles focused intently on their plates, and Ashley felt her face flush with embarrassment and anger. She had tried to explain that her work was meaningful, that helping emerging businesses succeed was valuable. But Marcus had dismissed her efforts with casual cruelty that revealed his true opinion of her career. That dinner marked the beginning of a more distant relationship between the siblings. Ashley stopped sharing details about her work, stopped seeking Marcus's advice on professional decisions, stopped hoping for his approval or understanding. Their interactions became cordial but surface level, family obligations fulfilled without genuine connection. Ashley threw herself deeper into her work, driven partly by passion and partly by a determination to prove Marcus wrong. She developed expertise in digital transformation for traditional businesses, helping them adapt to changing consumer behaviors and technological advances. Her client roster grew to include restaurants, retail stores, professional services firms, and even a few small manufacturing companies. The work was challenging and rewarding, but it remained largely invisible to her family. 6 months ago, the latest chapter in Ashley's unconventional career began when she was hired as a consultant by Meridian Industries, a mid-sized manufacturing company based in Newark that produced specialty components for automotive and aerospace applications. The company had been family-owned for 40 years, but was struggling to compete with larger corporations that had more resources and more sophisticated operations. Meridian's CEO, Robert Chen, had reached out to Ashley based on a recommendation from another client. The company needed help modernizing their operations, improving their supply chain efficiency, and developing a strategy for sustainable growth in an increasingly competitive market. Ashley spent weeks at their facility, studying their processes, interviewing employees, analyzing their financial data, and identifying opportunities for improvement. What she discovered was a company with incredibly skilled workers, strong relationships with long-term clients, and a reputation for quality that competitors envied. But they were handicapped by outdated systems, inefficient workflows, and a management structure that hadn't evolved with the business. Ashley developed a comprehensive plan for operational improvements, technology integration, and strategic positioning that could transform Meridian into a more competitive and profitable company. The presentation of her recommendations to Meridian's leadership team was one of the professional highlights of Ashley's career. She had identified specific changes that could reduce production costs by 15% while improving quality metrics. Her strategy for expanding into emerging markets was detailed and actionable. Her proposals for employee training and retention addressed the company's most pressing operational challenge. Robert Chen and his executive team were impressed enough to begin implementing her suggestions immediately. Unfortunately, none of these professional victories translated into family recognition. At last year's Christmas gathering, when Ashley mentioned her work with Meridian, Marcus had barely looked up from his phone. Manufacturing consulting, that sounds mind-numbing. I don't know how you can spend your time on such small-scale stuff when there are real opportunities out there. The dismissal was casual but cutting. Ashley had helped a company improve their efficiency, retain their workforce, and position themselves for growth. But Marcus saw only the modest scale compared to his own high-profile deals. The conversation moved on quickly, leaving Ashley once again feeling like her professional accomplishments were insignificant in her family's eyes. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving dinner 3 years prior. Ashley had just helped launch a sustainable fashion startup that was gaining significant traction among environmentally conscious consumers. She was excited about the company's mission and her role in developing their go-to-market strategy. As she explained the business model to the family, Marcus interrupted with a laugh that still echoed in her memory. "Ashley, when are you going to stop playing with these hobby businesses and get a real job? You're 25 years old and you're still acting like you're in college, trying to save the world one failed startup at a time. Meanwhile, I just closed a deal that saved 3,000 jobs at a manufacturing company. Which one of us is actually making a difference here?" The sting of his words was amplified by the uncomfortable silence that followed. Their parents exchanged glances, their aunts and uncles focused intently on their plates, and Ashley felt her face flush with embarrassment and anger. She had tried to explain that her work was meaningful, that helping emerging businesses succeed. But Marcus had dismissed her efforts with casual cruelty that revealed his true opinion of her career. That dinner marked the beginning of a more distant relationship between the siblings. Ashley stopped sharing details about her work, stopped seeking Marcus's advice on professional decisions, stopped hoping for his approval or understanding. Their interactions became cordial but surface level, family obligations fulfilled without genuine connection. Ashley threw herself deeper into her work, driven partly by passion and partly by a determination to prove Marcus wrong. She developed expertise in digital transformation for traditional businesses, helping them adapt to changing consumer behaviors and technological advances. Her client roster grew to include restaurants, retail stores, professional services firms, and even a few small manufacturing companies. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. These dynamics had shaped Ashley's self-perception in ways she was only beginning to understand. Despite her success in helping businesses grow and improve, despite the gratitude of clients whose companies were thriving because of her insights, despite her growing reputation among small and mid-sized business owners who recommended her services to their networks, Ashley still measured herself against Marcus's definition of success. The comparison was exhausting and ultimately unfair. Marcus worked within established corporate structures, executing strategies developed by teams of analysts and approved by boards of directors. His work was important and well compensated, but it was also relatively predictable. Ashley, meanwhile, was building something different. Each client presented unique challenges that required creative solutions, deep analysis, and the courage to recommend changes that established companies often resist. But success in Ashley's world looked different from success in Marcus's world. Her victories were measured in percentage improvements in client efficiency, in small business owners who could afford to hire additional employees, in companies that avoided bankruptcy because they learned to adapt to market changes. These accomplishments were meaningful but difficult to quantify in the terms that impressed their family. The irony was that Ashley's work often required skills that Marcus's corporate career had never demanded. She had to quickly understand complex operational challenges, build trust with skeptical business owners, develop solutions with limited resources, and implement changes in companies that were resistant to disruption. Her consulting work demanded adaptability, creativity, and business acumen that had been honed through years of working with diverse clients facing varied challenges. As Ashley reflected on her career trajectory during those quiet morning hours before the knock on her door, she was beginning to recognize patterns in her professional choices. She was drawn to situations where she could make a tangible difference, where her insights could directly impact people's livelihoods and companies' futures. The work wasn't glamorous by traditional standards, but it was substantial and important in ways that mattered to her. The relationship with Marcus had become a source of ongoing frustration and sadness. Ashley still remembered the older brother who had taught her to ride a bicycle, who had helped her with calculus homework during high school, who had driven her to college orientation because their parents were traveling. That Marcus had been protective and encouraging, proud of his little sister's intelligence and determination. The transformation in their relationship seemed to coincide with Marcus's entry into high-stakes corporate finance. As his career advanced and his income grew, his perspective on professional success had narrowed. He began measuring worth primarily through salary figures, company prestige, and industry recognition. Ashley's choice to work with smaller companies, to prioritize impact over income, to value relationships over transactions, apparently struck him as naive and ultimately unsuccessful. Their last significant conversation had occurred 4 months ago when Ashley called to tell him about a major breakthrough with Meridian Industries. She had helped the company secure a contract with a major automotive manufacturer that would increase their revenue by 30% over 2 years. The deal required implementing new quality control systems, expanding their production capacity, and training their workforce on advanced manufacturing techniques, all areas where Ashley's recommendations had prepared them for the opportunity. Marcus's response had been predictably dismissive.
That's nice, Ash, but when are you going to stop playing small ball? You're smart enough to work at a real company, to make real money, to build an actual career. This consulting thing is just glorified freelancing. You're 28 years old and you're still living in that tiny apartment, working with companies nobody's ever heard of. Don't you want more for yourself? The conversation had ended awkwardly, with Ashley feeling frustrated by Marcus's inability to see the value in her work, and Marcus apparently convinced that his sister was wasting her potential on insignificant projects. Neither sibling seemed capable of understanding the other's perspective on what constituted meaningful professional achievement. This dynamic had created a defensive mindset in Ashley that she was only recently beginning to recognize. She found herself constantly justifying her career choices, not just to her family, but to herself. Every client's success was measured against whether it would seem impressive to Marcus. Every professional decision was filtered through anticipated family reactions. The external validation she craved from her brother had become a distraction from the internal satisfaction she derived from her work. The morning when everything changed began like dozens of others. Ashley had been unemployed for 6 weeks, not by choice, but because Meridian Industries had completed the implementation of her recommendations and no longer needed her consulting services. The transition had been successful beyond Robert Chen's expectations, but success for clients often meant the end of consulting relationships. Ashley was between projects, living on savings while pursuing new opportunities, and trying not to feel like Marcus might be right about the instability of her chosen career path. Her routine had become depressingly predictable. Wake up at 7, check emails for new client inquiries, spend 2 hours applying for consulting positions or reaching out to her professional network, take a break for coffee and job search reflection, then repeat the process until evening. The lack of structure that had once seemed liberating when she was busy with client work now felt aimless and discouraging. The knock on her apartment door at 10 that Tuesday morning was unexpected enough to startle her. Ashley lived in a secure building in Hoboken, New Jersey, where visitors typically needed to be buzzed in through the lobby intercom system. She assumed someone had followed another resident through the main entrance and was canvassing apartments for sales or political purposes. She almost didn't answer. But curiosity won out, and she opened the door to find a man in his 50s wearing an expensive charcoal suit and carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than Ashley's monthly rent. His appearance was so incongruous with her modest apartment building that she initially wondered if he was lost or confused about his destination. "Ms. Ashley Park?" he asked, consulting a business card in his hand. "Yes, that's me. Can I help you?" "My name is David Morrison. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Hartwell & Associates. I'm here on behalf of my company and, frankly, on behalf of your brother Marcus. We need to discuss a very important opportunity that has become available." Ashley's confusion deepened. She knew Marcus worked at a private equity firm called Davidson Capital, not Hartwell & Associates, and she couldn't imagine any professional scenario that would connect his career to hers in a way that required an in-person visit from a stranger. "I'm sorry, I think there might be some confusion. My brother works at Davidson Capital, and I'm not sure what kind of opportunity you're referring to. Are you sure you have the right person?" David Morrison smiled, but his expression was serious. "Miss Park, I can assure you that I have the correct information. Your brother Marcus has been working with our firm for several months on a very complex engagement. During that time, your name has come up repeatedly in contexts that have made our leadership team very interested in meeting with you. May I come in? This conversation is quite important and somewhat sensitive."
Ashley hesitated. The man seemed legitimate. His business card appeared authentic, and his knowledge of Marcus suggested he was who he claimed to be. But the entire situation felt surreal. She was wearing pajamas, her apartment was cluttered with job search materials, and she couldn't fathom any reason why a senior executive from a company she'd never heard of would want to discuss opportunities with her. "Mr. Morrison, I appreciate you coming by, but I have to admit I'm very confused about what this is regarding. Could you give me a bit more context before we continue?" "Certainly. Miss Park, are you familiar with Meridian Industries?" The question caught Ashley completely off guard. "Yes, very familiar. I consulted with them for 6 months until recently. How do you know about that?" "Because Hartwell and Associates has been retained by a consortium of investment firms, including Davidson Capital, where your brother works, to evaluate Meridian Industries for a potential acquisition.
During our due diligence process, we discovered that the company's recent performance improvements were directly attributable to recommendations made by an external consultant named Ashley Park. Those improvements made Meridian significantly more attractive as an acquisition target. Ashley felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. Marcus's firm was involved in acquiring Meridian. The company, where she had spent months developing operational improvements, was being purchased by investors, including her brother's employer, and her work had contributed to making that acquisition more valuable. I had no idea that Meridian was considering a sale, or that Marcus's firm was involved. This is all news to me. That's understandable. These transactions are highly confidential until they're finalized. But, Ms. Park, your consulting work at Meridian caught the attention of several very important people in the investment community. The operational improvements you implemented didn't just make the company more efficient, they made it substantially more profitable and positioned it for significant growth. The acquisition consortium believes Meridian could be worth 3 times its current valuation within 5 years, primarily because of the foundation you helped establish. Ashley invited David Morrison into her apartment, suddenly self-conscious about her appearance and her living space, but too intrigued to continue the conversation in the hallway. As they settled in her small living room, Morrison opened his briefcase and removed several documents. Miss Park, I'm here because Hartwell and Associates wants to offer you a position, not a consulting role, not a temporary project, but a permanent executive position with substantial responsibilities and compensation. We believe your understanding of operational efficiency and business transformation could be invaluable to our firm and our clients. The offer was so unexpected that Ashley wasn't sure she had heard correctly. I'm flattered, Mr. Morrison, but I don't understand. I've never worked in private equity or investment banking. My experience is entirely in operational consulting with small and mid-sized companies. I'm not sure how my background would translate to your firm. Morrison smiled, the expression suggesting he had anticipated this response. Miss Park, that's exactly why we want you. Most people in our industry understand financial models and deal structures, but very few understand how to actually improve the companies we acquire. We can identify undervalued businesses, but we struggle to unlock their potential after we own them. Your work at Meridian demonstrated abilities that are incredibly rare in our world. He spread several documents across Ashley's coffee table, including financial statements, operational reports, and what appeared to be a comprehensive analysis of Meridian's transformation under her guidance. These documents show that Meridian's productivity increased by 18% during your engagement, their quality metrics improved by 22%, and their employee retention increased by 30%. More importantly, you helped them secure new contracts worth $40 million in additional revenue over 3 years. Those improvements didn't happen by accident. They happened because you understood how to diagnose problems, design solutions, and implement changes in ways that actually worked. Ashley studied the documents, recognizing her own recommendations reflected in Meridian's improved performance metrics. Seeing her work translated into concrete financial results was gratifying, but she still couldn't fully grasp the connection to Hartwell and Associates. Mr. Morrison, I appreciate your interest, but I'm still not clear on what exactly you're offering. What kind of position are you talking about? Morrison leaned forward, his expression becoming more intense. Miss Park, we want you to lead our new Operational Excellence Division. You would be responsible for identifying improvement opportunities in our portfolio companies, developing implementation strategies, and overseeing the execution of operational transformations. You would have a team of analysts, access to world-class resources, and the authority to drive changes that could impact billions of dollars in asset value. The scope of what he was describing was far beyond anything Ashley had imagined for her career. Leading a division at an investment firm, managing teams, working with portfolio companies worth hundreds of millions of dollars, it sounded simultaneously exciting and terrifying. That sounds like an incredible opportunity, but I have to ask about the compensation structure. I'm used to project-based fees, not corporate salaries. Morrison reached into his briefcase again and removed a folder with Ashley's name printed on the cover. Miss Park, we're prepared to offer you a base salary of $250,000, plus performance bonuses that could reach an additional $200,000 annually.
You would also receive equity participation in our fund, which historically has generated returns that significantly exceed the base compensation. Ashley felt dizzy. The salary Morrison had mentioned was more than double her highest annual income from consulting. The total compensation package was approaching the level that Marcus earned, possibly exceeding it when performance bonuses and equity returns were included. Mr. Morrison, this is an incredible offer, but I need to understand something. How does my brother fit into this situation? You mentioned that he works with Davidson Capital, which is part of the consortium acquiring Meridian. Did he recommend me for this position? Morrison's expression changed subtly, becoming more cautious. Ms. Park, that's a complex question. Your brother has been the lead analyst on Davidson Capital's evaluation of Meridian Industries. During that process, he has had access to all of our due diligence materials, including detailed analyses of your consulting work. He is aware that your recommendations were instrumental in making Meridian an attractive acquisition target. But did he recommend me for this position at your firm? Morrison hesitated before responding. Ms. Park, I want to be completely honest with you. Your brother did not recommend you for this position. In fact, when your name came up during our discussions about operational expertise, Marcus expressed some reservations about your qualifications for this level of responsibility. Ashley felt a familiar sting of disappointment mixed with anger. Even when her work had contributed to a major investment opportunity, even when external parties recognized her value, Marcus still doubted her capabilities. What kind of reservations? He suggested that your experience was limited to small-scale projects and that you might not be prepared for the complexity of working with larger organizations. He recommended that we consider candidates with traditional corporate backgrounds instead. The revelation hit Ashley like a physical blow. Her own brother, who had direct evidence of her professional capabilities, had actively discouraged a potential employer from offering her a significant opportunity. The betrayal felt worse than his casual dismissals at family gatherings, because this time, his low opinion of her work had professional consequences. Then why are you here, Mr. Morrison? If Marcus advised against hiring me, why is Hartwell and Associates making this offer? Morrison's smile returned, this time with a hint of satisfaction. Because, Miss Park, we don't make hiring decisions based on family dynamics. We make them based on results. Your work at Meridian speaks for itself, regardless of your brother's opinion. In fact, his reservations about your qualifications raised questions about his judgment that concerned several members of our leadership team. Ashley was quiet for several minutes, processing the implications of what Morrison had revealed. A senior executive from a major investment firm had offered her a position that would transform her career and her financial situation. Her brother, despite having direct evidence of her professional capabilities, had tried to sabotage the opportunity. The company where she had spent months implementing improvements was being acquired by investors who valued her contributions enough to offer her a leadership role in their organization. The emotional complexity was overwhelming. Ashley felt validated by Morrison's recognition of her work, excited by the scope of the opportunity he had presented, and deeply hurt by Marcus's lack of support. She also felt apprehensive about taking on responsibilities that were far beyond anything she had previously managed. But beneath all those emotions was something she hadn't experienced in years. The feeling that her professional worth was being accurately recognized by people who understood the value of what she did. Morrison and his colleagues at Hartwell and Associates saw her work at Meridian not as small-scale consulting, but as operational excellence that could be applied to much larger challenges. The offer represented more than just career advancement or financial improvement. It represented the possibility of proving that her unconventional career path had been preparing her for opportunities that traditional corporate careers might not provide. Instead of climbing a predetermined ladder within an established structure,
Ashley had been building capabilities that were apparently rare and valuable in ways she was only beginning to understand. As she changed out of her pajamas and prepared to spend the day researching Hartwell and Associates and considering Morrison's offer, Ashley realized that the morning's conversation had fundamentally changed her relationship with her own professional identity. For the first time in years, she wasn't measuring her worth against Marcus's definition of success. Instead, she was contemplating whether she was ready to accept an opportunity that would place her in a position of leadership and influence that might exceed anything her brother had achieved.
The irony was profound. Marcus had spent years dismissing Ashley's work as insignificant and advising her to pursue more traditional career paths. Now, his own firm was part of an investment consortium that wanted to hire her specifically because of the unconventional experience he had criticized. Her supposed professional failure had positioned her for an opportunity that he had tried to prevent her from receiving. Ashley spent the remainder of that day reading everything she could find about Hartwell and Associates, researching their investment philosophy, studying their portfolio companies, and trying to understand how her background would fit into their organizational structure. What she discovered reinforced Morrison's explanation of why they wanted to hire her. Hartwell and Associates specialized in acquiring mid-sized companies with strong fundamentals but unrealized potential. Their strategy focused on operational improvements rather than financial engineering, seeking to increase the value of their investments through better management, more efficient processes, and strategic positioning for growth. This approach required expertise that most investment professionals didn't possess, capabilities that were more commonly found among operational consultants like Ashley. The firm's portfolio included manufacturing companies, technology firms, healthcare providers, and retail chains, all businesses that had been transformed through operational improvements similar to what Ashley had implemented at Meridian. Reading case studies of their previous investments, she could see how her experience with process optimization, employee engagement, and strategic planning could be valuable across multiple industries and company sizes. By evening, Ashley had reached a preliminary decision about Morrison's offer. The opportunity was too significant to decline based on apprehension about unfamiliar responsibilities, and the validation of her professional capabilities was too meaningful to ignore. But before accepting the position, she needed to have a conversation with Marcus about his role in the situation and his attempts to discourage Hartwell and Associates from hiring her. The call to Marcus went straight to voicemail, as his calls often did during business hours. Ashley left a message asking him to call her back about an important professional matter, then spent the evening preparing for a conversation that would likely be difficult but necessary. Marcus returned her call the following morning, his voice carrying the distracted tone that indicated he was probably multitasking while talking to her. "Hey Ash, got your message. What's this important professional matter you wanted to discuss?" "Marcus, I had an interesting visitor yesterday. David Morrison from Hartwell and Associates came to my apartment to discuss a job opportunity. He mentioned that you've been working on the Meridian Industries acquisition and that you're familiar with my consulting work there." The silence that followed was longer than usual, suggesting that Marcus was processing the implications of what Ashley had revealed. "Hartwell and Associates contacted you. About what kind of opportunity?" Ashley could hear the tension in his voice, the careful neutrality that he used when he was trying to control a conversation's direction. "They offered me a position leading their new operational excellence division. Apparently, my work at Meridian impressed them enough that they want me to oversee similar improvements across their portfolio companies. It's a significant role with substantial compensation." Another long pause, then Marcus's voice returned with a forced casualness that didn't mask his obvious discomfort. "Ash, I had no idea they were going to contact you directly. That situation is more complicated than it might seem from the outside. Marcus, Morrison told me that you advised against hiring me. He said you expressed reservations about my qualifications and suggested they consider candidates with more traditional corporate backgrounds instead." The accusation hung in the air between them, creating a moment of silence that felt heavy with years of accumulated tension and disappointment. "Ashley, you have to understand the context. These firms operate at a level of complexity and pressure that's very different from what you're used to. I was trying to protect you from taking on responsibilities that might be overwhelming. It wasn't personal."
Ashley felt the familiar anger rising, but this time it was accompanied by something new, clarity about her own worth and capabilities that didn't depend on Marcus's approval. It wasn't personal. Marcus, you actively discouraged a potential employer from offering me a job that they believed I was qualified for based on work that you had direct evidence was successful. How is that not personal? Because I know that industry, Ashley. I know the kind of pressure and scrutiny that comes with those positions. You've been working with small companies where you can build relationships and implement changes gradually. This would be completely different. You'd be managing teams, reporting to senior partners, working with CEOs who expect immediate results. I didn't think you were ready for that transition. Ashley could hear the condescension in his explanation, the assumption that she couldn't handle challenges that he had successfully navigated. But she could also hear something else, uncertainty in his voice that suggested he wasn't entirely confident in his assessment. Marcus, let me make sure I understand this correctly. Hartwell & Associates reviewed my work at Meridian, saw that I helped improve their operational efficiency by nearly 20%, saw that I helped them secure $40 million in new contracts, saw that I helped them become attractive enough for acquisition that your firm wanted to invest in them. And despite all of that evidence, you told them I wasn't qualified to do similar work with their other portfolio companies? The summary of her accomplishments, stated plainly and factually, seemed to have an impact that years of family arguments had never achieved. Marcus was quiet for a longer period than usual, and when he spoke, his tone was more defensive than dismissive. Ashley, I've seen people fail in these positions because they underestimated the complexity. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to prevent you from taking on something that might damage your reputation if it didn't work out. My reputation with whom, Marcus? The small business owners I've been helping for years? The clients who recommend my services to their networks? Or my reputation with people whose approval you think I should care about? The question was more direct than Ashley had ever been with her brother about their professional relationship, and it seemed to catch him off guard. Look, maybe I was wrong about advising against the hire. Maybe you could handle the responsibilities. But Ashley, you have to admit that this would be a huge leap from anything you've done before. For the first time in the conversation, Ashley heard something in Marcus's voice that sounded like genuine uncertainty rather than confident dismissal. It was a small crack in the armor of his professional superiority, but it was significant enough to change the dynamic of their exchange. Yes, it would be a huge leap.
It would also be an incredible opportunity to apply everything I've learned on a larger scale, with better resources, working with companies that could benefit from operational improvements. Isn't that what professional growth looks like? Marcus didn't respond immediately, and Ashley could hear the sound of papers shuffling in the background, suggesting he was still trying to multitask during their conversation. Ashley, if you're seriously considering this offer, you should know that Davidson Capital has a significant investment in the Hartwell Fund. If you take this position, we'll essentially be working together on some projects. The revelation added another layer of complexity to the situation. If Ashley accepted Morrison's offer, she would be in a professional relationship with Marcus's firm, potentially working on deals where he was involved. The family dynamics that had always been confined to holiday gatherings and occasional phone calls would suddenly have professional implications. How do you feel about that possibility, Marcus? Honestly, I'm not sure. It could be complicated if there are disagreements about strategy or execution. Our personal relationship might make it difficult to maintain professional boundaries. Ashley considered his response, recognizing it as the closest thing to vulnerability that Marcus had expressed about their relationship in years. He was acknowledging, perhaps for the first time, that their sibling dynamic could impact their professional interactions. Marcus, I've been thinking about our relationship a lot lately, especially about how we view each other's career choices. I think we've both made assumptions that aren't entirely fair or accurate. What do you mean? I think you've assumed that my work with smaller companies was somehow less sophisticated or less valuable than your work with large corporations. And I think I've assumed that you dismissed my career because you thought I wasn't smart enough or capable enough to succeed at higher levels. Marcus was quiet, suggesting he was actually listening rather than preparing his next argument. But maybe the real issue is that we've been measuring success using different criteria. You value scale, prestige, and financial returns.
I value direct impact, relationship building, and operational improvement. Both approaches have merit, but neither of us has really tried to understand or appreciate the other's perspective. Ashley, I want you to know that I've never thought you weren't smart enough. If anything, I've sometimes thought you were too smart for your own good, choosing difficult paths when easier ones were available. The admission was small but significant. The first time Marcus had explicitly acknowledged Ashley's intelligence and capabilities without qualifying it with criticism of her choices. Marcus, I need to ask you something directly, and I hope you'll give me an honest answer. Okay. Do you think I should accept the Hartwell and Associates offer? The question hung between them, carrying the weight of years of professional disagreement and family tension. Ashley was asking not just for Marcus's professional opinion, but for his support and encouragement in a way that she hadn't sought since college. Marcus was quiet for nearly a minute, long enough that Ashley wondered if the call had been disconnected. Ashley, based on what Morrison told you and what I know about the firm, I think it could be an incredible opportunity for you. The compensation is excellent, the responsibilities would give you experience with larger-scale challenges, and the potential for career advancement is significant. Ashley felt a surge of relief and gratitude at hearing something approaching encouragement from her brother. But more than that, I think you might actually be uniquely qualified for this role in ways that traditional candidates wouldn't be. Your experience with operational consulting has given you skills that most people in our industry don't have. You understand how to actually improve companies, not just analyze them financially. The acknowledgement was more than Ashley had hoped for, and she felt tears welling up as she recognized the validation she had been seeking for years. Marcus, why didn't you recommend me for this position when it came up during your discussions with Hartwell? Another long pause. Then Marcus's voice returned with a tone of resignation and perhaps regret. Because I was thinking like your older brother instead of like a professional colleague. I was worried about you failing, worried about you being in over your head, worried about protecting you from disappointment. But I should have been thinking about your capabilities and your potential instead of my fears about what might go wrong. The honesty in his admission was more than Ashley had ever heard from Marcus about their relationship or his perceptions of her career. Ashley, if you want my professional opinion, I think you should accept the offer. And if you want my personal opinion as your brother, I think it's about time someone recognized how talented you are. After the call ended, Ashley sat in her apartment feeling emotionally drained, but also clearer about her decision than she had been since Morrison's visit. Marcus's support, however belated and qualified, meant more to her than she had expected. But more importantly, his acknowledgement of her professional capabilities confirmed what she had been learning about herself, that her unconventional. Ashley accepted the position at Hartwell and Associates with a mixture of excitement and trepidation that kept her awake for 3 consecutive nights. The salary negotiation had been surprisingly straightforward, with Morrison accepting her request for additional vacation time and professional development funding without hesitation. Her start date was set for the following month, giving her time to wrap up loose consulting commitments and mentally prepare for the dramatic shift in her professional environment. The Hartwell and Associates offices occupied 3 floors of a glass tower in Manhattan's financial district, with panoramic views of the Hudson River and enough marble in the lobby to construct a small monument. Ashley's first day began with a comprehensive orientation that included meetings with senior partners, department heads, and the team of analysts who would be reporting to her in the newly created Operational Excellence Division. The cultural adjustment was immediate and jarring. Where her consulting work had involved collaborative relationships with business owners who valued her insights, Hartwell's environment was characterized by competitive dynamics, hierarchical communication, and an underlying tension that suggested everyone was constantly being evaluated. Her colleagues were uniformly impressive, with advanced degrees from prestigious universities, years of experience at top-tier firms, and an encyclopedic knowledge of financial markets that Ashley realized she would need to develop quickly. Her direct supervisor was Catherine Walsh, a senior partner who had built Hartwell's reputation for successful operational improvements in healthcare and technology companies. Catherine was in her early 50s, impeccably dressed, and possessed a communication style that was simultaneously encouraging and intimidating. During their first private meeting, she outlined expectations for Ashley's performance with clinical precision. Ashley, your hiring represents a significant investment in a new strategic direction for our firm. The partners believe that operational excellence will become increasingly important as competition for quality acquisition targets intensifies. Your success in this role will determine whether we expand this capability or abandon it entirely. There's no middle ground. The pressure was unlike anything Ashley had experienced in consulting, where client relationships developed gradually and success was measured over extended periods. At Hartwell, her performance would be evaluated quarterly, with specific metrics for portfolio company improvement, revenue enhancement, and cost reduction. The stakes were higher, the timeline was compressed, and the scrutiny was constant. Ashley's first assignment was Precision Manufacturing, an aerospace components company that Hartwell had acquired 6 months earlier. The business was profitable but underperforming relative to industry benchmarks, with quality control issues, supply chain inefficiencies, and a workforce that was demoralized by years of ownership uncertainty. Her challenge was to develop and implement improvements that would increase the company's valuation by 30% within 18 months. The precision manufacturing facility was located in Connecticut, requiring Ashley to spend 3 days per week on site and 2 days at Hartwell's Manhattan offices. The factory environment was familiar from her work at Meridian Industries, but the scale was dramatically different. Precision employed over 400 people across manufacturing, engineering, and administrative functions, with complex production processes that served clients in the aerospace, defense, and automotive industries. Ashley spent her first month conducting a comprehensive operational assessment, interviewing employees at every level, analyzing production data, and studying the company's competitive position. What she discovered was a business with excellent technical capabilities that was handicapped by outdated management practices, inefficient communication systems, and a lack of strategic focus on their most profitable product lines. The manufacturing floor revealed the most significant opportunities for improvement. Production schedules were managed through a combination of whiteboards and spreadsheets that created constant confusion about priorities and deadlines. Quality control inspections were conducted manually, resulting in inconsistent standards and occasional defects that reached customers. Inventory management was haphazard, with expensive raw materials sitting unused while critical components were frequently out of stock. But Ashley also discovered assets that weren't reflected in Precision's financial statements. The engineering team included several designers who had developed innovative solutions to complex manufacturing challenges. The quality control supervisor had implemented testing procedures that exceeded industry standards in several areas. The maintenance staff had modified equipment to improve efficiency in ways that could be replicated across the entire facility. Ashley's operational improvement plan focused on leveraging these hidden strengths while addressing systemic weaknesses. She proposed implementing digital production scheduling systems, automated quality control processes, and inventory management software that would integrate with customer ordering systems. More importantly, she recommended reorganizing the company around their most profitable product lines and investing in employee training programs that would enhance skills and improve retention. The presentation of her recommendations to Hartwell's investment committee was Ashley's first major test in her new role. The conference room was filled with senior partners whose combined experience included hundreds of successful acquisitions and billions in asset management. Catherine Walsh introduced Ashley with words of support, but the atmosphere was clearly evaluative rather than collaborative. Ashley's presentation lasted 45 minutes and covered operational improvements that would require an initial investment of $8 million, but were projected to generate $24 million in additional value over 3 years. She had prepared detailed financial models, implementation timelines, and risk assessments for every major recommendation. The questions that followed were thorough and occasionally skeptical, but Ashley found herself drawing on years of consulting experience to provide confident, well-reasoned responses. The committee approved her plan unanimously, with several partners commenting that her analysis was the most comprehensive operational assessment they had reviewed. Catherine Walsh later told Ashley that her presentation had exceeded expectations and established credibility that would be valuable for future projects. Implementation of the precision manufacturing improvements began immediately, with Ashley overseeing a team of analysts, technology consultants, and change management specialists. The process was complex and occasionally contentious, as employees who had worked the same way for years struggled to adapt to new systems and procedures. Ashley found herself mediating conflicts between long-term workers and newly hired supervisors, explaining technical changes to skeptical engineers and reassuring managers who worried about job security during the transition. The most challenging aspect of the implementation was managing resistance from Precision's existing leadership team. The company's CEO had been in place for 12 years and took Ashley's recommendations as implicit criticism of his management approach. Several department heads questioned whether operational changes were necessary, arguing that the company's problems were primarily market-related rather than internal. Ashley had to navigate these dynamics carefully, building support for improvements while maintaining relationships with people whose cooperation was essential for success. 6 months into the implementation process, the results began justifying Ashley's projections. Production efficiency improved by 15% as digital scheduling eliminated confusion and reduced downtime. Quality control automation caught defects that had previously reached customers, improving satisfaction scores and reducing warranty costs. Inventory management improvements freed up working capital that could be invested in equipment upgrades and employee training. More significantly, Ashley's focus on the company's most profitable product lines led to new contract opportunities with existing clients. Precision's engineering team, encouraged by investment in new design software, developed component innovations that attracted interest from aerospace manufacturers who had never worked with the company previously. Revenue from these new relationships was projected to exceed $10 million in the first year alone. The success at Precision Manufacturing established Ashley's reputation within Hartwell & Associates and led to additional assignments with portfolio companies in manufacturing, healthcare, and technology industries. Each project presented unique challenges, but Ashley found that her consulting experience had prepared her well for the pattern recognition and problem-solving required in diverse business environments. Her work with a medical device manufacturer revealed supply chain vulnerabilities that were costing the company millions in expedited shipping and premium supplier charges. Her analysis of a software company identified product development inefficiencies that were delaying new releases and reducing competitive advantage. Her assessment of a retail chain uncovered inventory management problems that were resulting in stockouts of popular items and overstock of slow-moving merchandise. The pattern of success continued across multiple engagements, with Ashley consistently delivering operational improvements that exceeded projections and enhanced portfolio company valuations. Her reputation spread beyond Hartwell to other firms in the private equity community, where operational expertise was increasingly recognized as a differentiator in competitive acquisition markets. 18 months after joining Hartwell & Associates, Ashley received an unexpected call from Catherine Walsh requesting an immediate meeting. She arrived at Catherine's office to find not just her supervisor, but also Robert Hartwell himself, the firm's founding partner and chairman. At 72, Hartwell was a legendary figure in private equity, known for his ability to identify undervalued companies and transform them into industry leaders through strategic improvements. "Ashley, please sit down. We have something important to discuss with you," Catherine began, her tone unusually formal. Robert Hartwell leaned forward in his chair, studying Ashley with the intense focus that had made him successful in countless business negotiations. "Ashley, in 50 years of investing, I've learned that the most valuable people in our industry are those who can see potential where others see problems and execute solutions where others see only complexity. Your work with our portfolio companies has demonstrated both of those qualities consistently." Ashley felt a familiar nervousness that accompanied high-stakes conversations, but also a confidence that had developed through months of successful project delivery and positive feedback from clients and colleagues. "Thank you, Mr. Hartwell. I've been fortunate to work with talented teams and supportive leadership throughout my time here. Ashley, I'm not interested in false modesty. You've generated measurable value improvements across every engagement you've managed. More importantly, you've done so while building positive relationships with company management teams and employee groups. That combination of technical competence and interpersonal effectiveness is extremely rare in our industry." Catherine Walsh opened a folder on her desk and removed several documents. "Ashley, your work at Precision Manufacturing alone generated returns that exceeded our original investment projections by 40%. Similar improvements at other portfolio companies have enhanced our fund performance in ways that will benefit our investors for years to come." Ashley was beginning to sense that this meeting had implications beyond performance review or project assignment, but she couldn't anticipate what direction the conversation might take.
Mr. Hartwell, I appreciate the positive feedback, but I'm not sure why this requires a meeting with you directly. Is there a specific issue or opportunity you'd like me to address?
Robert Hartwell smiled, an expression that seemed to carry decades of successful negotiations and strategic decisions. Ashley, there is indeed an opportunity, but it's not what you might expect. I'm retiring at the end of this year, and the partnership has been evaluating candidates to succeed me as chairman of Hartwell and Associates. Ashley felt the world shift around her, as if the ground beneath her chair had suddenly become unstable. The idea that she might be considered for such a position had never occurred to her, despite her success with portfolio company improvements. Mr. Hartwell, I'm honored that you would consider me, but I've only been with the firm for 18 months. Surely there are partners with more experience and deeper relationships who would be better qualified for leadership. Ashley felt the world shift around her, as if the ground beneath her chair had suddenly become unstable. The idea that she might be considered for such a position had never occurred to her, despite her success with portfolio company improvements. Mr. Hartwell, I'm honored that you would consider me, but I've only been with the firm for 18 months. Surely there are partners with more experience and deeper relationships who would be better qualified for leadership. Ashley, let me explain something about leadership in our industry. Traditional qualifications, like years of service and deal experience, are important, but they're not the most critical factors for success going forward. The private equity landscape is becoming more competitive, with more firms competing for quality acquisition targets. The winners will be those who can add value to companies after acquisition, not just identify undervalued opportunities. Catherine Walsh nodded in agreement. Ashley, your operational expertise represents the future of our industry. Financial engineering and leverage optimization have reached their limits as value creation strategies. Operational excellence is where sustainable competitive advantage will come from in the next decade. Ashley was struggling to process the magnitude of what they were suggesting. Chairman of Hartwell and Associates would make her one of the most influential people in private equity, responsible for billions in assets and hundreds of employees across multiple offices. Mr. Hartwell, I'm deeply honored by your consideration, but I need to understand what this role would entail and why you believe I'm prepared for such responsibilities. Ashley, the chairman's role involves 3 primary functions: strategic direction for the firm, relationship management with institutional investors, and oversight of portfolio company performance. Your work over the past 18 months has demonstrated capabilities in all 3 areas. He gestured toward the documents on Catherine's desk. Your strategic recommendations have enhanced portfolio company values by an average of 38%, well above industry benchmarks. Your presentations to investment committees have been consistently clear and persuasive. Your relationship management with company CEOs and management teams has resulted in cooperation and loyalty that makes implementation of improvements much more effective. Catherine Walsh added, Ashley, we've also been impressed by your ability to communicate complex operational concepts to partners who don't have your technical background. That skill will be essential for managing relationships with institutional investors who need to understand how we're adding value to their investments. Ashley was quiet for several minutes, considering the implications of what they were proposing. The opportunity was beyond anything she had imagined for her career, but it was also intimidating in ways that her previous professional challenges had not been. Mr. Hartwell, if I were to accept this role, how would the transition work? Would there be a period where I'm working alongside you to learn the aspects of the position that I haven't been exposed to? Certainly, we would structure a 6-month transition period where you would gradually take on chairman responsibilities while I remain available for consultation and guidance. Additionally, Catherine would continue as your deputy, handling administrative functions while you focus on strategic leadership. The proposal was becoming more concrete and therefore more real in ways that were both exciting and terrifying. Ashley would be transitioning from operational consulting to running one of the most successful private equity firms in the country. Mr. Hartwell, may I ask why you're not promoting from within the existing partnership? There must be partners who have been with the firm longer and have deeper relationships with investors. Robert Hartwell's expression became more serious. Ashley, that's an excellent question that deserves a direct answer. We have several partners who are technically qualified for the chairman role, but none who possess your combination of operational expertise and leadership capability.
More importantly, none who represent the future direction that we believe our firm needs to pursue. Catherine Walsh elaborated, Ashley, the private equity industry is facing increased scrutiny from regulators, pension fund investors, and portfolio company stakeholders. Firms that can demonstrate genuine value creation through operational improvement will have significant advantages over those that rely primarily on financial engineering. Your background positions us perfectly for that environment. Ashley realized that her unconventional career path, which Marcus and others had viewed as a limitation, was actually being seen by Hartwell's leadership as a strategic advantage that could differentiate their firm in a competitive market. Mr. Hartwell, what would be the compensation structure for this role? Ashley, the chairman receives an annual salary of $1.5 million, plus equity participation in all fund returns. Historically, total compensation has ranged from $4 to $8 million annually, depending on fund performance. You would also have access to co-investment opportunities that could significantly enhance your wealth creation over time. The financial terms were staggering, representing a level of compensation that Ashley had never imagined achieving. But more than the money, the role represented validation of her professional worth that exceeded anything her family or previous colleagues had ever recognized. Mr. Hartwell, I need some time to consider this opportunity carefully. It's a significant responsibility, and I want to make sure I'm prepared for the challenges involved. Of course, take whatever time you need, but Ashley, I hope you'll consider one additional factor in your decision. What's that? Robert Hartwell leaned back in his chair, his expression becoming more personal than it had been during their business discussion. Ashley, in my experience, the most successful leaders are those who have faced adversity and learned to trust their own judgment despite external skepticism. Your path to this office has been unconventional, but that's precisely why you're prepared for the challenges ahead. After the meeting, Ashley walked through Lower Manhattan in a daze, trying to process the conversation and its implications. The chairman position at Hartwell & Associates would place her among the most powerful executives in private equity, responsible for investment decisions that would impact thousands of employees and billions in institutional investor capital. The professional validation was overwhelming. Less than 2 years earlier, she had been unemployed and questioning whether her consulting career had been a series of wrong decisions.
Marcus had dismissed her work as insignificant and advised against her hiring at Hartwell. Now, the firm's leadership was offering her the most senior position in their organization based on the success of that same work. But Ashley also recognized that accepting the chairman role would fundamentally change her relationship with her family and her own identity. She would no longer be the underachieving sibling who worked with small companies on modest projects. She would be a major figure in corporate finance, earning more money and wielding more influence than Marcus had ever achieved. That evening, Ashley called her parents to share news of the chairman opportunity. Their reaction was a mixture of pride, excitement, and barely concealed astonishment that their younger daughter was being considered for such a prestigious position. Ashley, we always knew you were capable of great things, but this is beyond what we imagined for anyone in our family, her mother said, her voice filled with emotion. Her father was more analytical, asking detailed questions about Hartwell & Associates, the responsibilities of the chairman role, and the implications for Ashley's long-term career development. But Ashley could hear the pride in his voice as he processed the magnitude of what she was being offered. Ashley, you should definitely accept this position, he said finally. It's the kind of opportunity that comes along once in a lifetime, and you've clearly earned it through your hard work and intelligence. The conversation with her parents was gratifying in ways that Ashley hadn't expected. For years, family gatherings had been dominated by Marcus's achievements, while her work was politely acknowledged but not celebrated. Now, her parents were struggling to comprehend the scope of what she had accomplished and the opportunities that were available to her. The call to Marcus was more complex. Ashley waited until late evening, knowing that he would be finished with work and hopefully more receptive to a personal conversation than he was during business hours. Marcus, I have some news that I wanted to share with you directly before you hear about it through other channels. Okay, what's going on? Hartwell & Associates has offered me the chairman position. Robert Hartwell is retiring, and they want me to succeed him as the head of the firm. The silence that followed was longer than any pause in their previous conversations, stretching nearly a minute before Marcus responded. Ashley, are you serious? They're offering you the chairman role? Yes, we had the meeting today. The transition would happen over 6 months, with Hartwell staying on as advisor during that period. Another long pause. Then Marcus's voice returned with a tone she had never heard from him before, somewhere between amazement and something that might have been respect. Ashley, that's incredible. Hartwell and Associates is one of the most successful private equity firms in the country. Being chairman would make you one of the most powerful people in the industry. Ashley could hear the genuine astonishment in his voice, the recalibration of his understanding of her professional trajectory that was happening in real time. Marcus, I wanted you to know because if I accept the position, it will change the dynamic of our professional relationship. Hartwell works with Davidson Capital on several investments, and I would probably be involved in negotiations and strategic decisions that affect your firm. Ashley, if you accept this role, you would essentially be my superior in the industry hierarchy. Davidson Capital manages about $2 billion in assets. Hartwell manages over $15 billion. The admission seemed to surprise Marcus as much as it surprised Ashley. For the first time in their adult relationship, he was explicitly acknowledging that her professional position would be more senior than his. Marcus, how do you feel about that possibility? Another pause, shorter this time. Then Marcus's voice returned with a tone that sounded more like the supportive older brother from their childhood than the competitive corporate executive from recent years. Ashley, I feel like I owe you an apology. I've been wrong about your career choices, wrong about your capabilities, and wrong about what success looks like. If Hartwell and Associates is offering you the chairman position, it means you've achieved something that I never even aspired to. The admission was more than Ashley had expected, and she felt tears forming as she recognized the shift in their relationship that was happening through this conversation. Marcus, I appreciate you saying that, but I don't need an apology. We both made assumptions about each other's careers that weren't entirely fair. No, Ashley, I do need to apologize. I let my own insecurities about success cloud my judgment about your abilities. When I advised Hartwell against hiring you, I was thinking like a threatened older brother instead of like a professional colleague who should have recognized your qualifications. Ashley was quiet, absorbing the honesty in Marcus's admission and the implications for their future relationship. Marcus, if I accept this position, I hope we can work together professionally in ways that are positive for both of our firms and both of our careers. Ashley, if you accept this position, I would be honored to work with you, and I hope you'll forgive me for not recognizing your potential sooner. After the call ended, Ashley sat in her apartment considering the conversation and its significance for her decision about the chairman role. Marcus's support and acknowledgement meant more to her than she had expected, but she also recognized that her happiness and professional satisfaction could no longer depend on family approval or recognition. The following morning, Ashley called Catherine Walsh to request another meeting with Robert Hartwell. She had made her decision about the chairman opportunity, but she wanted to discuss implementation details and her vision for the firm's future direction. The meeting was scheduled for that afternoon, and Ashley spent the intervening hours preparing notes about strategic initiatives she would pursue as chairman and operational improvements she would implement across Hartwell's portfolio companies. When she entered Robert Hartwell's office, she found him reviewing financial reports with the focused attention that had made him successful for 5 decades in private equity. Ashley, I hope you've had time to consider our offer thoughtfully. Do you have questions about the role or the transition process? Mr. Hartwell, I've decided to accept the chairman position, but I'd like to discuss my vision for the firm's strategic direction and the initiatives I would pursue in the role. Robert Hartwell's smile was immediate and genuine. Ashley, that's excellent news. I hoped you would accept, but I wanted the decision to be entirely yours. Please tell me about your strategic vision. Ashley opened her notebook and began outlining plans that she had developed through the night and morning, ideas that built on her experience with operational excellence but expanded to encompass broader industry trends and competitive positioning. Mr. Hartwell, I believe Hartwell and Associates should become the leading private equity firm for operational transformation. Rather than competing primarily on capital availability or deal sourcing, we should differentiate ourselves through our ability to unlock value in companies that other firms see as mature or declining. She continued with specific proposals for expanding the operational excellence team, developing industry-specific expertise in healthcare and technology, and creating partnerships with consulting firms that specialized in digital transformation and process optimization. Additionally, I think we should establish a formal program for sharing operational improvements across portfolio companies. Many of the efficiency gains I've implemented at individual companies could be adapted to other businesses in our portfolio, creating value through knowledge transfer and best practice implementation. Robert Hartwell listened intently, occasionally asking questions about implementation timelines and resource requirements. When Ashley finished her presentation, he was quiet for several minutes, apparently processing the scope and ambition of what she had proposed. Ashley, your strategic vision aligns perfectly with where I believe our industry is heading. More importantly, you have the operational expertise and leadership capability to execute these initiatives successfully. Catherine Walsh, who had joined the meeting, added her support for Ashley's proposals. Ashley, these ideas build naturally on the success you've already achieved with our portfolio companies. Institutionalizing that expertise across the firm would create sustainable competitive advantage. The conversation continued for over an hour, covering transition timelines, staffing requirements, and communication strategies for announcing Ashley's appointment to investors and portfolio company management teams. By the end of the meeting, Ashley felt confident that she was making the right decision and prepared for the challenges that lay ahead. The announcement of Ashley's appointment as chairman of Hartwell & Associates was made 3 weeks later through press releases, investor communications, and industry publications. The reaction was immediate and largely positive, with financial journalists noting her unconventional background and successful track record of operational improvements. The private equity industry newsletter Private Equity Week published a profile of Ashley that described her rise from small business consultant to private equity chairman as evidence of the industry's evolution toward operational value creation. The article quoted several institutional investors who expressed confidence in her leadership and enthusiasm for her strategic vision. Marcus called Ashley the evening the announcement was published, his voice carrying excitement and pride that she hadn't heard since their childhood. "Ashley, I saw the announcement in the Wall Street Journal. There's a photo of you in the Financial Times. This is incredible coverage for someone who's never sought public attention." "Marcus, it's been overwhelming but exciting. I never expected to be in a position where business journalists would be interested in my background or opinions." "Ashley, you're now one of the most powerful people in private equity. Your decisions will impact billions in assets and thousands of employees. That's not a position that attracts attention accidentally." Ashley could hear genuine respect in Marcus's voice, a recognition of her achievement that went beyond family loyalty or professional courtesy. "Marcus, I hope you know that none of this changes how I feel about our relationship or how much I value your support and advice." "Ashley, I'm proud to be your brother, and I'm excited to see what you accomplish in this role. If there are opportunities for our firms to work together, I hope you'll consider Davidson Capital as a potential partner." The conversation was brief but meaningful, representing a complete reversal of the dynamic that had characterized their relationship for years. Marcus was now seeking Ashley's consideration for professional opportunities rather than dismissing her work as insignificant or unpromising. Ashley's first month as chairman of Hartwell & Associates was intense and demanding, filled with meetings with institutional investors, strategic planning sessions with senior partners, and operational reviews of portfolio companies. The learning curve was steep, but her background in consulting had prepared her well for quickly understanding complex business challenges and developing actionable solutions. Her initial focus was on expanding the operational excellence team and implementing knowledge-sharing systems that would allow successful improvements at one portfolio company to be adapted for others. The initiative required significant investment in personnel and technology, but early results suggested that the returns would justify the costs. 6 months into her tenure as chairman, Ashley received a call from Robert Chen at Meridian Industries, the company where her consulting career had intersected with the private equity world that eventually led to her current position. "Ashley, I wanted to congratulate you on your appointment at Hartwell & Associates. I've been following your success in the business press, and I'm not surprised that your talents have been recognized at such a high level." Thank you, Robert. Meridian was instrumental in preparing me for this role, even though I didn't realize it at the time. The operational improvements we implemented there became the foundation for everything I've accomplished since. Ashley, I'm calling because I have a proposal that might interest you. Meridian has grown significantly since our acquisition by the Hartwell Consortium, and we're considering additional expansion opportunities. Would you be interested in exploring a partnership between Meridian and some of Hartwell's other portfolio companies? The conversation led to a strategic alliance that created supply chain synergies and operational efficiencies across multiple companies in Hartwell's portfolio. The initiative generated returns that exceeded projections and established a model for collaboration that Ashley implemented across other industry sectors. 1 year after becoming chairman, Ashley was invited to speak at the National Private Equity Association's annual conference, addressing an audience of over 2,000 industry professionals about operational excellence as a value creation strategy. The speech was well received and established her reputation as a thought leader whose insights were reshaping industry best practices. As she stood at the podium, looking out at an audience that included Marcus and colleagues from firms throughout the equity ecosystem, Ashley reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The brother who had once dismissed her work as insignificant was now in the audience, listening respectfully as she shared strategies and insights that were influencing industry practices. The irony was not lost on her. The career path that Marcus had criticized as small-scale and unpromising had prepared her for opportunities that exceeded anything he had achieved in his own professional trajectory. The operational expertise he had dismissed as irrelevant had become the foundation for her leadership of one of the most successful firms in private equity. But more than the professional vindication, Ashley had discovered something more valuable than family approval or industry recognition. She had learned to trust her own judgment about what constituted meaningful work, to value her unique capabilities independent of external validation, and to pursue opportunities that aligned with her interests and strengths rather than other people's definitions of success. The relationship with Marcus had evolved into something more honest and supportive than it had been since their childhood. He now sought her professional advice, respected her business judgment, and expressed pride in her accomplishments without qualification or reservation. Ashley, I'm proud to be your brother, and I'm excited to see what you accomplish in this role. If there are opportunities for our firms to work together, I hope you'll consider Davidson Capital as a potential partner. The conversation was brief but meaningful, representing a complete reversal of the dynamic that had characterized their relationship for years. Marcus was now seeking Ashley's consideration for professional opportunities rather than dismissing her work as insignificant or unpromising. Ashley's first month as chairman of Hartwell and Associates was intense and demanding, filled with meetings with institutional investors, strategic planning sessions with senior partners, and operational reviews of portfolio companies. The learning curve was steep, but her background in consulting had prepared her well for quickly understanding complex business challenges and developing actionable solutions. Her initial focus was on expanding the operational excellence team and implementing knowledge-sharing systems that would allow successful improvements at one portfolio company to be adapted for others. The initiative required significant investment in personnel and technology, but early results suggested that the returns would justify the costs. 6 months into her tenure as chairman, Ashley received a call from Robert Chen at Meridian Industries, the company where her consulting career had intersected with the private equity world that eventually led to her current position. Ashley, I wanted to congratulate you on your appointment at Hartwell and Associates. I've been following your success in the business press, and I'm not surprised that your talents have been recognized at such a high level. Thank you, Robert. Meridian was instrumental in preparing me for this role, even though I didn't realize it at the time. The operational improvements we implemented there became the foundation for everything I've accomplished since. Ashley, I'm calling because I have a proposal that might interest you. Meridian has grown significantly since our acquisition by the Hartwell Consortium, and we're considering additional expansion opportunities. Would you be interested in exploring a partnership between Meridian and some of Hartwell's other portfolio companies? The conversation led to a strategic alliance that created supply chain synergies and operational efficiencies across multiple companies in Hartwell's portfolio. The initiative generated returns that exceeded projections and established a model for collaboration that Ashley implemented across other industry sectors. 1 year after becoming chairman, Ashley was invited to speak at the National Private Equity Association's annual conference, addressing an audience of over 2,000 industry professionals about operational excellence as a value creation strategy.
The speech was well received and established her reputation as a thought leader whose insights were reshaping industry best practices. As she stood at the podium, looking out at an audience that included Marcus and colleagues from firms throughout the private equity ecosystem, Ashley reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The brother who had once dismissed her work as insignificant was now in the audience, listening respectfully as she shared strategies and insights that were influencing industry practices. The irony was not lost on her. The career path that Marcus had criticized as small-scale and unpromising had prepared her for opportunities that exceeded anything he had achieved in his own professional trajectory. The operational expertise he had dismissed as irrelevant